Evil Dead is debatably my favorite horror franchise, right next to Scream. It's one of those two, so it is now time to stop and rank all five Evil Dead films from my least awesome to my most awesome. Because let me tell you this, guys. If I'm gonna go on just consistency of horror franchises in terms of quality, this is by far the best one. As great as Scream is, three and four do kind of fumble the factor that it's not as consistently great as Evil Dead. So this is a great horror franchise, and I'm happy to talk about because I love this franchise. I love Ash. These are all I have seen. I watched the Evil Dead 2 for the first time not that long ago. I've already seen Rise. The remake I watched last night, which was also a first time watch, which was the same night I watched Saw X, because you guys are watching this in the future. But I'm recording this right after I did my Saw tier list, which is getting a bit meta now that I think about it. Oh, don't think about this. But I have seen Army of Darkness twice because I have nostalgia for it, because it's the first one of these I saw. So we are going to get into things, and I'm going to say this. This is not my objective list. If this was objective, list would probably be much different by far. But anyway, this is just my opinion, but don't just let me tell you what my opinion is. Put yours in the comments below. Would love to hear. What do you think of these ones? Do you hate Army of Darkness because of the comedic route it kind of takes? Do you love Army of Darkness for that? Do you think that some of these are really dated? Do you think that some of these are just so gnarly and violent that you can't handle it, so you've never checked them out? Would love to know all your thoughts in the comments below. But with all that said, let's get started with my least favorite, which I still do love. So in least best place for me, or least favorite place for me, is going to be Evil Dead Rise. Now, like I said, no misses in this franchise. Consistently great with quality. For me, this one, while still being an awesome film, it fumbled a few things that kept it from me fully going on like A plus. Like, this is either very high B plus or A minus. I will rewatch this one probably within the next, maybe tonight, if I can finish Freddy's no, not Freddy Dead, Freddy's Revenge tonight. If I can finish that one tonight, then I'll start Evil Dead Rise and probably finish it. But I do know I really liked this when I first saw it. This is my second Evil Dead film I ever saw. I saw Army of Darkness first, as I previously said, but for me, it was mostly the execution of the characters that I didn't really enjoy as much, because this is one of the first times where I've said I feel like I didn't get to know the characters as well. Most of the time, you have someone. Well, not really. It's not. That's kind of a problem with most of these films. But someone like where you have Ash, who, you love this guy. He's awesome, and he sticks out. Kind of these characters are a bit forgettable. Where you have this mother that's, of course, I think she's like a tattoo artist or something. Then you have the kids that are, and everyone's kind of defined by a characteristic that they like, and you don't really get to know them. And when you have these stakes where this is children, and they let you know very quickly, they're not playing around. They will kill kids. They are very hard R in this, and the gore is really impressive, which I do like. But I felt like they really they let the they let the characters thing down a little bit. They're still watchable characters. It's just some of them can make stupid decisions, which it's a horror film, so you kind of have to accept that and just play along for the ride. But another thing I really liked is just the way that they frame this and make this even more terrifying, where in a horror film, pretty much all the time, the person that you want to turn to is your mother, because she's the one to protect you. And in this, it's the opposite. She's the threat this time, because the Deadite infected her. So now she is the threat here. She is the one that you don't want to be near. And they play around with that, like where you have like the little kid that kind of understands it, but in a certain way doesn't. Well, nobody really understands what's happening to her, but and like the Deadeye is trying to manipulate her, and the way that it just spreads around, where even though they're like the Deadeyes infect the kids and some of the kids, so they're hard R. And the only disappointment was the character stuff, and I did feel like there's a cheese grater thing that they heavily marketed in the trailers that I thought was going to be really gnarly and good. And in execution, while it does have a bit of practical effects and stuff, it did feel like it was nowhere near as just violent or gruesome as it should be. And the considering what it came after, the violence is everything because the remake or reboot, I'm gonna get a lot of heat either way, but man, that is a very gruesome film. But this overall, it's a gnarly film at times. It can be really unnerving at certain points, and I do still love this film. Again, I can give this a 4.5 on rewatch. It just depends. I don't know, maybe 4.5, maybe 4. All I know is I really enjoy this film. So if you guys are wondering to know if you should check this out, go ahead. This is definitely a check out, and like I said, all these, check them out. Definitely a fun ride. Okay, fun was not the right word. Not enjoyable. They're definitely films that are good. Let's just say that. We'll phrase it that way so I don't get in trouble with some people in the comments who are pretty sure are probably already typing at the moment. But anyway, really good film, Evil Dead Rise. There's some stuff that kind of holds it back, but still a really good film. Okay, now from here on out, these are all like films that I adore and films that if I ever do a top 100, which I will be doing, all you guys have to do if you want to see that is click that subscribe button so I can get myself to 1K quicker. And anyway, if you guys want to see that, please do. I really would like it, but if I ever did a top 100, most likely all the next 4 will make this list. 3 of them already are in it. This one will probably make it as well. But in 4th place for me is going to be Evil Dead, the remake or reboot or whatever. Can we please figure this out? A lot of people say it's a remake. A lot of people say it's a reboot because you can like see Ash's truck here, and because a little minor spoiler, but there's technically not really even kind of, but there's like a weird post-credit scene where I don't even know what it is. You get like Ash in the post-credit scene and he just shows up for a second like in like a complete, I love Ash, but the remake is if you want to say a hardcore horror film that is gnarly as heck, this is making that list because yikes, this film is brutal as just. This film is unashamedly just, it does not hold back. Like, you see some of the most violent practical effects you can find. And with, like, all this, like, self-mutilation with people like Mia. And where Mia gets her own character arc from this drug addict that who legally dies because of her drug addiction. And they have to use a defibrillator to physically bring her back to life, which technically is possible. Legally, you can die, but a defibrillator can bring you back to life. But we're not going into the science stuff. We're movie nerds. So, anyway, this is definitely a gnarly film. Not for the faint of heart. If you're like, oh, man, I could throw this on. It doesn't look like it's going to be that terrifying. You guys are wrong. This film is really not for the faint of heart. I know a lot of people wouldn't die trying to watch this. And it is a really awesome film. It can be very awesome with, like, that third act, and it just gets so cool and it's definitely, there's a little CG now and then, but overall it's very practical and very well done. And Mia gets her character arc, as I said, from being this person that technically ODs and physically dies to becoming someone that becomes a deadite to then becoming the actual hero and actually being I won't spoil, but she actually emerges victorious and destroys the evilish version of herself, and that's awesome. And the cinematography makes this look very unnatural and grim and very just I'm trying to use the right word here. It makes it seem very uncomfortable and gritty. And it kind of feels like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre did in like that regard, almost like with the cinematography, just even darker. So it is a fantastic film that I do love. I would give this a 4.5. It is a 4.5. I love this film, but you guys can see that already. But it is definitely a film that you also should check out. Which I gave this check out to Rise. So since this is above it, I probably should not be having to say this. But this is a fantastic film, and I do really like it. It's just, I feel like the thing is, I'm just more of a fan kind of a Bruce Campbell and Ash, I think. and because the other three are classics. All three are classics. I'm not going to deny it, and those are one of the reasons. So, that's one of the things that I really respect about what this does. So, that stands out from it because like you can tell that it objectively it's like it like is taking the formula. Uh, it's very much taking the formula, but it's definitely doing it in a great way. So, it is a very well done film that you should check out. Top three, baby. And at number three is going to be the original classic, The Evil Dead. And again, love this film. Love it. Was very genuinely shocked at how much I like, at how much I did love it. And really, my only minor little thing that's keeping it at the top two is I do think that for one, there's two things. One is that I do think that while there's some great practical effects here that look fantastic, I've always found that, well, not always, but because I haven't seen this film too much, I've only seen this film once. I do think the there are some effects that do not look very good at all, and really look very dated. So that's really my only minor gripe with it because, again, love this film. So, but again, Ash is probably in my other ones. Ash is not very. He's not Ash. This is because Ash for me is the over the top, just action spinning one liner, throwing just awesome guy that's just going awesome on these guys and just like hail to the king, baby. Yeah, that's Ash. This and like all the groovy stuff, and this is not really Ash. This is the guy that's like getting pushed around by these deadites, and like this is very much something where it's kind of like a scenario with Chucky. He's very much more like serious and much more just grounded in the first one. Then the sequels like kind of rewatched the first one for me and were like, wait, this we have an opportunity with this guy. They took a chance, made him much more comedic, and apparently loved it. So that's kind of been the trend ever since. Maybe not with Chucky, they've kind of gone a bit more back to serious, but they had a run where it was very silly. But this is very much a more grounded version of Ash, and for me, as much as I do love grounded heroes, it is good to have an Ash once in a while, or like have a John Matrix. So that's also really awesome. So, but it is a very grounded film. It's a very gritty and dirty film, and it is very much a, a film that when you see that it was rated NC-17 back in the day, you understand because this film is hardcore, and it really does not play around with its R rating. It goes straight. Like some of the blood and gore here looks really good, and I would definitely tell you that as if you're a horror fanatic, this is a must watch. This is a horror classic that you guys would adore probably, and it's definitely a film that is worth checking out. As I've said numerous amounts of times, it holds up in basically every way besides the effects, but it is definitely a film that is a classic. It just could it's very close with my number two. It kind of my number four. The middle three are very interchangeable. Probably the 3 and 2 are gonna stay where they are, except for like maybe switching like the Evil Dead being at number 2 maybe. But overall, a fantastic film that I do love. It's borderline a 5 out of 5. It's just so close that it's a fantastic film. But I wouldn't go quite 4.5. I mean I wouldn't go quite 5, but I do love it. Yeah, I'm hearing the hate train coming because at number 2 is going to be Evil Dead 2. Now, I know this is the fan favorite for a lot of people. For me, it's, again, borderline a masterpiece. It is so close to a 5 out of 5. On any given day with, like, these rewatches for my number 2 and 3, they could go to 5 out of 5. It's just, right now, I feel like it probably should get a few more watches, and I do think it does have some... I think really what keeps it from the 5 out of 5 and being possibly my number 1 is, well, A, it's not as rewatchable as my number 1. And also, I feel like it feels like it's such a recap of the first one that it feels like you're just eating the same meal again. So, if you, like, especially for, like, movie rankers where we have to, like, binge them, that was, like, my one concern going in. I'm like, is this going to be like a almost a just the same film again, and it's going to be really hard to watch. So I mean, not that the first one was terrible, but I mean, watching it twice in a row, that probably wouldn't have been that good. Let's be honest. Um, uh, so that, and I do think it. While you have you're it kind of does its own tone where it's very much it can be horror, and practical effects with the violence, but it can also be very much comedy, like with all like the slapstick stuff. And in that regard, it does succeed in some ways, but I feel like it kind of comes with like a clashing tone, where there's times where it wants to be horror, or there's times where it wants to be comedy, and I feel like there's times where it really clashes, so it does feel a bit jarring at times. But like the physical comedy by Bruce Campbell is hilarious and off the charts. Like, this is definitely one of the best versions of Ash. This is my second favorite version of him. I think we all know what my number one version of him is, because it's probably everyone's number one version, if we're being honest. And this is like where like the one-liner started with like the groovy, and I love like when he gets the chainsaw on his hand, and as well gets the boomstick. And it's just such a fun film that, again, there's some problems here with like there's some effects that also don't look that good, but again, it was very low budget, just like the first film, and they managed, and overall a really fun film that I do thoroughly enjoy. But what could possibly beat Evil Dead 2? What is so much better than Evil Dead 2? I'll let you in on one little secret. Nothing in terms of this franchise, probably, in just terms of my top three, it's not. But my favorite in this franchise, my number one, is going to be Army of Darkness. Again, the first one I saw, I had nostalgia for it, but also it's just so fun. And I mean, it's unique because like I don't think there's a single other horror film or just film in general that like has this type of feel of like this, almost like this horror action comedy with it's set in the medieval time, and I love it. Like, it's just so rewatchable. This is a top 30, I think, maybe top 20. It is a fun as heck film. And like this is the definitive version of Ash for me. This is like where the one-liner started, and it's, of all the films I've seen in my life, this has got to be one of the most quotable. It's either this or Die Hard for the most quotable film. Like, you've got some great one-liners in here, like, of course, the one being, "This is my boomstick."
I shall see you dead. Yeah. All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. See this? This is my boomstick!
And of course, there's just so many great moments in here. Like, I laugh all the time when the thing with like the London Bridge is falling down, and then he like steps on the nail.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down.
My fair lady.
It's just so fun, and it's a film so fun and great that you forgive the fact that the effects look awful. The effects look terrible. I mean, like, they are atrocious. It's a B movie. It is low budget as heck, and it shows. Like, some of the effects look terrible, I think, when they came out. It did not look good in certain regards, even when it came out. And some of the effects do look laughable, but it's just so much fun that you cannot help but be, like, laughing at it, and it's just so much fun. Like, the stop motion on the skeletons is so blatantly obvious. It's like the Terminator level. It's like almost like the Terminator in terms of just the effects, and it's just such a fun film that you have so much fun with, and like that. And there's like a scene where, like in the scene with the London Bridge is falling down, where he steps on the nail. If you're looking closely, if you watch, it's just Bruce Campbell, and he just steps on the floor, and they use the camera and make it look like he stepped on the nail. But if you look closely, you'll see that it didn't even go near the nail. It looks hilarious. I actually watched when I was watching this to record. I actually noticed that. I was like, wait. He didn't even step on the nail. They didn't do any of that. That is actually hilarious. And there's just so many great moments in here. Like, the one-liners are great. And I just, man, this is just a glorious film. And, like, the bad Ash is just so funny. It's like this counterpoint to Ash, just to give more one-liners. I have an action figure of Bad Ash over there with, like, that has a poster stand for Army of Darkness. I just love it that much. And it's just so quotable, and just, I mean, there are just so many moments in here. Like, I laugh every time. Well, both times I've watched, I have laughed at, like, the part where he's like trying, like, the Klaatu Verada, and then he forgets the last part, and he's like, and he like just coughs the rest. It is so funny.
Klaatu, Verada.
And it is just one of the most fun films I've seen. Sorry about that little cut there, but anyway, like I'm saying, Army of Darkness is hilarious. It's fun, quotable, and I adore it. So for me, my number one is without a doubt gonna be Army of Darkness. So there you guys have it. That is my ranking of all 5 Evil Dead films, from my least awesome to my most awesome. In 5th place is Evil Dead Rise. In 4th place is Evil Dead 2013. In 3rd place is The Evil Dead. In 2nd place is Evil Dead 2. And my number one favorite, let me emphasize that favorite, it's not the best, I will admit that fully. My number one is Army of Darkness. And again, one of the most consistent franchises, just in general, I've seen. Horror, definitely the most consistent probably I've seen. Just so consistently great in terms of quality, and it's just so fun, gnarly, vicious, and unforgivably brutal at times. And I like that this is that if I'm ever in the mood for that, this film gives it to me in spades. I mean, there's a film for all of that in spades, and I love that. And be sure to let me know your ranking in the comments below. Would love to know your thoughts on them. Do you love some of them? Do you hate some of them? Let me know down below. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so I can reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers and finally get to do that top 100 movies of all time ranking. I'm very excited about that, and I know a lot of my subscribers are as well, so don't keep it from them as well. And then you can join in on and be one of those anticipating ones. But thank you all so much for being here. Be sure to check out the links to my Letterboxd and Patreon in the description. They are always there. And just consider becoming a Patreon if you love my content. I will be posting things on there soon. Probably a review for probably all these in the future will be on there exclusively. So if you guys think that is really good for you and that you would really enjoy that, then be sure to consider it. And thank you all so much for watching, and have a good one.